The New York Times is striking back at artificial intelligence, filing a federal lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft. The Times accusing them of copyright violations by using its stories to train their chatbots and allegedly stealing billions of dollars worth of work by their journalists. Let's bring in Kris Ruby, CEO of Ruby Media Group and a commentator, of course, on big tech and AI. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us on the cusp of a new year, one that could certainly see big effects from that technology. I want to start here because per the OpenAI website, OpenAI, this is a company. They research, their development company, quote, "Our mission is to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity." But the humans over at the New York Times are not so sure they're doing the right thing right now, so they're suing. Your thoughts on the actions the New York Times is taking?
My thoughts are that plagiarism does not benefit humanity. We have very strong copyright protection laws in this country. And unfortunately, what we have seen over the past year is some of the largest tech companies in the AI space basically use machine learning to essentially circumvent those copyright laws. When you have machine learning models that are training on the work and the data of journalists or publications, and those publications are not receiving royalties or any compensation for the underlying training data, there's a problem. And that is why this case is going to really set legal precedent depending what happens here. Because many people feel like the New York Times. Not everyone can come forward and sue, but make no mistake, this has impacted actors, it's impacted writers, it is impacting artists, every single creative industry. And what is going to happen is if there is no way for creative professionals to opt out, they're going to opt out of being in the industry in general at large. And you will see a mass exodus of creative talent unlike anything that you've ever seen before in this country. And that is really problematic.
Yeah, great point there. The number of lawsuits filed against OpenAI has been growing and growing. Some major notable American authors also suing. The AP reporting that John Grisham, Jody Peacock, George R.R. Martin, that's Game of Thrones fame, have all worked towards lawsuits, essentially working to protect their content, their creativity, to still hold control over their product and not have it essentially farmed. Your thoughts on some of these big names, their lawsuits, like the New York Times, are they essentially standing up for a great number of people that wouldn't be able to take on big AI tech companies?
They are. And we should be saying thank you, because again, as I said earlier, not everyone is able to do this. You really need to have significant funds to take on a company like OpenAI. So the people that are sort of becoming the representative of each of these industries who are trying to set legal precedent with these lawsuits, thank you to them who are actually saying, wait a second, my work means something. My work has value to it, and what you're doing is theft. What you're doing is plagiarism. And we need to protect that underlying mechanism that really runs everything in creative industries, not just for one, but for all of us. And there's a difference in this AI safety conversation. We talk about guardrails a lot. There's a difference between AI training data guardrails and societal guardrails. And what we're seeing is that the people who are standing up and saying this is not okay, they're actually fighting for societal guardrails. And those societal guardrails really have to do with the legal infrastructure of this country and the legal infrastructure of basic copyright protection.
Yeah. Kristen, real quick before I let you go, there are a great many media organizations that are actually in talks with these companies for trade, for monetary compensation. Is that the next forefront? And are companies that don't make a deal, are they losing out on essentially something that is just becoming part of the future?
Yes, if you're not able to make a deal, which most independent journalists or artists will not be able to, they will be losing out. And that's also part of the concern with this OpenAI and New York Times lawsuit as well. It depends on how those contracts are structured with their writers. But if New York Times essentially owns all of the IP for anything those journalists are writing, technically, even if New York Times, if they win this case, are the individual writers truly winning? Not necessarily. So if New York Times is getting a payout and that is the legal precedent that's set, what does that mean for the individual writers? Will they ever receive a part of that payout? We don't know yet. But to your point, we need to fight for everyone involved in this process, for the future of labor in this country, or it will be wiped out with automation.
Kris Ruby, a well-made final point there. Thank you so much for joining us, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.